My sister tried to steal my wedding in a white dress, but I outsmarted her and my parents, leaving them humiliated and stuck with the bill. I can't remember a time when I wasn't compared to Lauren. From the moment I could understand words, I knew I was second best in my parents' eyes. My earliest memory is from my 5th birthday in our suburban home in Springfield. Mom had ordered a chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, Lauren's favorite. I hated chocolate cake and had begged for strawberry for weeks. When I mentioned this, Mom patted my head and said Lauren would be upset if she didn't get to enjoy the birthday celebration too. That was the pattern, my wants always secondary to Lauren's needs. Every Christmas morning in our modest 2-story house looked the same. Lauren's pile of presents towered over mine, not just in size but in thought and expense. My parents, Tom and Sarah Miller, weren't wealthy, but they managed to fulfill Lauren's every wish while telling me to be practical about my expectations. When I was 8, I desperately wanted a bike like the other kids in our neighborhood. Lauren received a shiny blue Schwinn that year, while I got educational books and a sweater that was slightly too small. Family vacations were planned around Lauren's interests. If she wanted to see the beach, we drove 6 hours to the coast. If she developed a sudden interest in history, we visited Washington, D.C. My suggestion to visit the local amusement park was always met with explanations about why it wouldn't work this year, maybe next summer. At home, I became Lauren's emotional punching bag. 3 years older than me, she knew exactly how to torment me without leaving evidence. She'd pinch me under the dinner table, hide my homework, or whisper threats when no one was listening. If I cried or complained, my parents accused me of being overly sensitive or trying to get Lauren in trouble. Even when I had bruises, they'd say I was clumsy or did it to myself for attention. As we entered our teenage years in Riverdale High, the dynamic shifted. Lauren struggled to maintain friendships. Her manipulative behavior that worked so well on our parents repelled her peers. Meanwhile, I found my place with a small group of friends who appreciated my loyalty and listening skills, qualities I developed as a survival mechanism at home. Lauren's social isolation only intensified her hostility toward me. My growing popularity became her newest target. She spread rumors about me at school, stole my clothes before important events, and once, accidentally, deleted a term paper from my computer the night before it was due. Through it all, our parents remained her biggest cheerleaders. At family gatherings, they'd brag about Lauren's B in chemistry while completely ignoring my straight A's. When she managed to land a role in the school play as townsperson number 3 with no lines, they invited the entire extended family and recorded every second of her onstage standing. My first-place win at the state science fair warranted a distracted, "That's nice, honey," while they scrolled through their phones. By 7th grade, my social life came under attack. Lauren told our parents that my friends were bad influences who drank alcohol and skipped classes, complete fabrications about 12-year-olds whose worst offense was occasionally staying up past 10 on weekends. Without investigating, my parents banned me from seeing them outside of school. My salvation came from my extended family living in Burlington, just 20 minutes from our home. My cousin Emily's birthday party brought everyone together, including my forbidden friends whose parents were friends with my aunt and uncle. During the celebration, I accidentally let slip that I couldn't have sleepovers anymore because Lauren told Mom that Zoe drinks beer. The adults within earshot exchanged concerned glances. Later that week, I overheard my mother's sister confronting her about the restrictions placed on me based solely on Lauren's word. The conversation ended in shouting, but afterward, my parents loosened their grip, though I received punishment for lying about Lauren's involvement. Still, the small victory tasted sweet. Lauren's reputation suffered enough damage that she begged to transfer to Westfield Academy across town. My parents immediately agreed, stretching our family budget to afford the private school tuition. While I continued at Riverdale with public school resources, Lauren received new uniforms, private tutoring, and a laptop for educational purposes. At Westfield, Lauren found friends who shared her entitled outlook. This new circle gave her additional ammunition against me as they would drive by our house, honking and yelling insults when my parents weren't home. When I reported this harassment, my father chuckled and called it just kids having fun. My mother suggested I was exaggerating to make Lauren look bad. The hostile environment at home prevented me from inviting friends over. I made excuses about renovations or my parents being strict about guests. The truth that I was ashamed of how I was treated in my own home felt too vulnerable to share. Instead, I spent as much time as possible at friends' houses, soaking in the normalcy of their family dynamics where children were valued equally. My bedroom became my sanctuary. I decorated it with posters of places I dreamed of visiting once I escaped my family's orbit. I saved every dollar from babysitting jobs in a locked box hidden in my closet. Each contribution to my freedom fund felt like another step toward independence. At 16, I started dating Jason from my biology class. He was kind, thoughtful, and blissfully unaware of my family situation until my parents insisted on meeting him. I postponed the introduction for weeks, knowing Lauren would find a way to sabotage this happiness too. When I finally relented, the evening began with uncomfortable questions from my parents and ended with Lauren cornering Jason in the kitchen. The next day, Jason seemed troubled. After some hesitation, he admitted that Lauren had pressed herself against him when no one was looking and whispered suggestions about what they could do if he met her later. When he rejected her, she smiled and said no one would believe him anyway. Jason was right. When Lauren tearfully accused him of making inappropriate comments and trying to touch her while she just wanted to be friendly, my parents exploded. They banned Jason from our house and insisted I break up with that horrible boy. No amount of defending him made a difference. Their minds were made up before I even opened my mouth. The relationship crumbled under the strain. Jason couldn't understand why I wouldn't stand up to my family more forcefully, and I couldn't explain the lifetime of conditioning that made confrontation seem impossible. We drifted apart within weeks. My second relationship followed the same pattern. Michael and I dated for nearly 3 months before Lauren met him at a school football game. This time, her approach was more direct. She contacted him on social media, sending increasingly suggestive messages. When Michael showed me the conversations, I felt the familiar mixture of anger and helplessness. We decided to confront Lauren together, showing my parents the evidence of her behavior. It backfired spectacularly. Lauren claimed Michael had messaged her first and deleted his initiating texts to make her look bad. She performed her usual routine, trembling lip, watery eyes, wounded innocence, and my parents once again chose her version of reality over documented proof. After Michael walked out of my life, my mother sat me down for a heart-to-heart about my poor judgment in boys and suggested maybe I should focus on school instead of dating. The irony of her concern after systematically destroying my relationships was painful, but I nodded silently, already planning my eventual escape from their toxic influence. When Lauren turned 18 and started dating Tyler, my parents welcomed him like royalty. He received dinner invitations weekly, and my mother went out of her way to prepare his favorite meals. My father took an interest in Tyler's college football aspirations, even attending games when Lauren was busy. They praised his C-average grades as signs of a well-rounded individual who knows how to balance academics and social life. After 3 months, Tyler broke up with Lauren via text message. Suddenly, my parents' assessment changed dramatically. The boy they'd practically adopted became a manipulative jerk and always seemed untrustworthy. My mother spent hours consoling Lauren, buying her new clothes and taking her for spa days to heal her broken heart. The disparity in our treatment extended to every aspect of life. Lauren received a $50 weekly allowance for expenses, while I got $15 and was expected to save for anything I wanted. Her curfew was midnight on weekends. Mine was 10:30 despite being only 3 years younger. She could borrow the family car with minimal notice. I needed to submit request days in advance and provide detailed itineraries. When I pointed out these inconsistencies, my parents justified the differences with Lauren's age. When you're her age, you'll have the same privileges, they promised. Yet when I reached the ages at which Lauren had received various freedoms, the goalposts mysteriously moved. Suddenly, the issue wasn't age, but responsibility or current family circumstances, nebulous concepts that somehow always worked against me. If I pressed the issue, my father would remind me of incidents from years before, usually Lauren's fabrications, as evidence that I hadn't earned their trust. Lauren's actual transgressions, the time she dented the car and blamed a hit-and-run driver, or when she lost her entire semester's book allowance at the mall, were forgotten or minimized. As Lauren approached high school graduation with mediocre grades and minimal extracurricular achievements, my parents began discussing college options as if Harvard might come calling any day. They took her on college tours across 3 states, buying new outfits for each visit. I tagged along silently, noting the campuses I preferred but keeping my thoughts private. I'd learned that voicing my own aspirations only invited criticism or dismissal. Lauren ultimately enrolled in Western State University, a perfectly decent school, though nowhere near as prestigious as my parents pretended when announcing her acceptance to friends and family. Her 2.7 GPA hadn't qualified her for academic scholarships, but my parents threw an elaborate graduation party and promised to cover her entire tuition, housing, and expenses. I felt a wave of relief knowing Lauren would be 3 hours away. Perhaps I could finally experience a normal home environment without her constant manipulation. That hope died quickly when she began returning home nearly every weekend, claiming homesickness while simultaneously complaining about missing campus parties. Her presence meant I remained locked in the same toxic patterns, just with brief respites between her visits. During my junior year, I maintained a 4.0 GPA while participating in debate team, yearbook committee, and volunteering at the local animal shelter, partly out of genuine interest, but also building a resume that might earn me scholarships. I knew what was coming. Sure enough, as college application season approached, my mother sat me down at our kitchen table. With practiced sympathy in her voice, she explained that Lauren's education had stretched them thin financially, and they simply couldn't afford to help with my college expenses. They suggested I consider community college while working full-time, or perhaps take a gap year to save money. When I asked about living at home after graduation to save on housing costs, my father interjected that I would need to pay rent, to learn responsibility, unlike Lauren, who had never been charged during her frequent returns. The conversation ended with them refusing to co-sign student loans, effectively limiting my options to what I could finance independently. I nodded calmly throughout the discussion, which visibly unsettled them. They'd expected tears, pleading, or anger, reactions they could dismiss as immaturity. My composure confused them, as they didn't realize I'd anticipated this scenario for years. While Lauren had spent high school focused on social climbing and dating, I'd been researching scholarships, maintaining perfect grades, securing glowing teacher recommendations, and crafting compelling personal essays. I'd secretly taken SAT prep courses paid for by my after-school job at the library. I'd applied for every possible financial aid opportunity, often staying up until 2 a.m. completing applications after finishing my regular homework. 2 weeks after my conversation with my parents, I received an acceptance letter from Russell University with a full academic scholarship covering tuition, room, and board. I'd also received modest grants for books and expenses based on my financial need and academic performance. For once, my parents' neglect worked in my favor. Their refusal to contribute to my education qualified me for additional aid. I knew Lauren would find a way to taint this achievement if given the chance, so I made my announcement publicly. I posted my acceptance letter on social media, tagging family members and thanking my teachers for their support. Congratulations flooded in before Lauren or my parents could control the narrative. Initially, my parents expressed pride. This achievement reflected well on them, after all. But after a private phone call with Lauren, their enthusiasm dimmed. They began expressing concerns about the university's distance from home, though it was only 2 hours away compared to Lauren's 3. They wondered aloud if such a serious academic environment might be too challenging for me, despite my perfect GPA. They suggested deferring acceptance to think things through.